Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. Today I'd like to show you the completed trench emplacement, which somebody else called a firing pit, which may be a fair description of it. I wanted to give you a final look at that and discuss some of the techniques that I use. So let's take a closer look. So here you can see an overview of the board. The board features, if you haven't seen the work in progress, a 6 by 3 inch trench emplacement, or as somebody described as a firing pit, as it doesn't technically come above the heights of the heads of the models. I'll show you that in a second. Small rubble pile in the back, so I could practice a couple painting techniques there. And a razor wire barricade in the front that is built from Cities of Death buttress pieces and railing pieces, as well as some secret weapon miniatures, razor wire. I'm going to do a separate review of the razor wire in an upcoming video, so I'm not going to talk about it much in this video here, and I want to focus mainly on what I learned about doing the trench. So I wanted to give you an eye-level view of the pit so that you could see how tall the miniatures stand in it. This Sister of Battle is, she has a sort of a chest-high bolter, and in this gap in the sandbags right here, the bolter just sticks through the gap just barely. Other places where the bags are double stacked, really it's about head high for the miniature, maybe just to, and the shoulders. So I think it's a good height and depth wise. It's 1 inch deep for the pit. And then the bags add another, sort of, I forget, 1/4 inch or maybe 1/3 of an inch to that. So that produces I think, a very believable sight line for miniatures trying to take cover from a barricade or an emplacement like this. So I'm going to do a little handhold panning of the close-ups because I want to get in some really tight detail on some of the work that was done and show you some of the rusting effects that I've done. Now, I tried to go in using the hairspray technique. If you're not familiar with that, basically you paint it with a rust color, you apply hairspray over that, then you paint it with a top coat, and then by using a stiff brush and some water, you can scrape off the top layers to reveal the rusted undersides. The one thing I like about it is it produces a pattern of rust that isn't easily duplicated by applying rust after the fact. It gives it a real scratched look, and it's hard to see in some spots, but it can produce a sort of three-dimensional texture if the top coat layer of paint is thick enough to show that it's actually chipped off to reveal the rusting areas that are underneath. The rust actually got quite a bit muted when I applied some weathering powders, and I think you can see some of the collection. I tried to add some into the barrel, around the cracks and the crevices to try to dirty up everything, and it really muted that down. So in the future, I may go in with a much stronger pigment coloring for the rust, knowing that it's going to be muted quite so much down the road. Looking at the pit, you can see what I've done is a granny grate flooring, and then I just painted that with a steel color over a rust color. I think this was bolt gun or some kind of clone of that, and then went in and scraped that off. I found after I did that it still needed a little more, so I applied some more rust over that. And I had gotten some feedback from a friend and a few other people about dirtying up the inside of the pit a little bit more. So I did try to pile some sand along the sides in a few spots, but I think it's going to need some more of that in the future iterations to kind of give it a sense that, material from the top of the pit is crumbling in, and, in the hectic scramble over the barricade, debris is falling in. Another viewer suggested adding some ammo crates. One suggested adding a cloth top to this. I opted not to do that, not because they weren't great ideas, they are, but because this is really a test piece, and I was mostly focused on the rusting technique and how easy it was going to be to paint the interiors of these areas, and how hard it would be to, achieve some of the basic effects that are the underlying focus for me on this project. And then to give you a little shot of what the barricades look like and a preview of the razor wire, as again I'm going to show you that in more detail in another video. But what I did is I did the same technique on these. So I got to practice the hairspray technique on a variety of surfaces, and textures, and I found that it can make quite a bit of difference. Say even the type of paint that was top coated can affect it, the amount of dry time you give that. I think I rushed a little bit on a couple pieces and didn't allow the top paint to dry enough. And also I had trouble inside the pit where some areas I was actually rubbing off both the paint and the rust layers and then ending up with the black primer underneath. So I went back in and I had to touch up the rust in some of the areas. So I think it, like I said, you know, a lot of learning, and I think I can show you some of those touched up areas, but they don't really stand out that much, again because of the muting that the weathering powders that I added at the end created, which I like overall, as it kind of, you know, blended everything together, gave it a little bit of a dustier, dirty look, and I think worked out pretty well in that sense. But again, I'd like to go in with some brighter colors, I think, in the future for some of those rust effects, so that they'd stand out a little more prominent in the you know, in the final stages. You know, the idea with using the hairspray technique was to try to speed up the rust process, as it can be quite time consuming to add in individual spots all over. And in the end, I don't know if it's an incredibly big time saver, but it does produce a really unique effect that I like, so I'm definitely going to be using it more going forward with similar projects. So I'll have photos of these of this board up on the website, and I'll put a link in the description down below so you can follow that link to take a look at some photos that'll show hopefully some of the details a little more clearly. And stay tuned to the channel for the upcoming review of the Secret Weapon Miniatures razor wire brass etched product. Thanks. Talk to you soon.